Hello. Here I am. Clicked on the wrong one. Good morning, and welcome to a Proud Malcontent on this Sunday, the 30th of November, 2025, St Andrew's Day. And I don't know, Happy St Andrew's Day. I don't like that. Let's just say it's St Andrew's Day, and we are celebrating. It's Scotland's Day. So that is what we're celebrating. And to mark that, I've picked out some articles, some items from the National, and I've focused. There's a lot going on, but I've focused on the articles that relate to the this being St Andrew's Day. And I'm going to keep that as brief as possible. We'll then go over to Stephen Duncan and Confute Corner, and it might be a bit more like Confused Corner this morning because it may be that I have uploaded the wrong presentation. And only discovered this literally 2 minutes before we went live. So I haven't had a chance to fix it if it's wrong. Anyway, let's deal with St Andrew's Day first, shall we? And the first item that I came across was this about Gaelic and Scots gaining official status on St Andrew's Day today. They are now official languages. That has various significances in law. It's various significances legally. They get certain protections, and they allow for financing of research. Scottish ministers can finance research, etc. The bit that caught my eye, the bit I want to share with you, is this bit right at the end. Latest census statistics show that 130,161 people in Scotland had some Gaelic skills in 2022, an increase of 43,105 from 2011. The census shows that 2,444,659 people in Scotland had some Scots skills in 22, an increase of 515,215 from 2011. Now, what this says to me is that this is living languages. These are living languages, and they're Scots languages. They're part of our culture. And what these increases show, and remember that's going back to 2022 at the census, it's now 2025. They had another 3 years. What these increases, what these statistics say to me, is that there's a growing awareness of and interest in and engagement with Scottish culture. And as you probably know from previous broadcasts and my blog, I came kind of late to the cultural side of Scotland's cause. And I was drawn to it mainly by Alf Baird, but others as well. And I now fully recognise the importance of our own language. I'm quite content that English should be one of those languages. English is the global second language, so there's no reason why we shouldn't be using it. Everybody else does. But there's a growing awareness that Gaelic and Scots are also part of Scotland's culture. So let's recognise that, and let's celebrate the fact that those languages are now official languages of Scotland. And we'll go back to the National, and what we have. Come on, there you go. As you're told. It's nice to be able to agree with John Swinney from time to time. And I have to agree with him when he says that the saltire is a proud symbol of Scotland's peaceful values. The bit from his statement that I'll read out here is, St Andrew's Day is a time to celebrate everything that makes the fabric of modern Scotland, our history and traditions, our values, our rich diversity of communities and cultures. Couldn't agree more, John. Couldn't agree more. And it is good that there is a growing celebration of these things on St Andrew's Day, and it's good that we have St Andrew's Day to celebrate these things. Every other nation has a day, a national day. Why should Scotland be the exception? And on that same subject, there's plans for a new monument dedicated to Scotland's national flag. And you maybe know about the existing one at Athelstan and Athelstonford in East Lothian. And the existing one is getting a bit decrepit, apparently. I don't know. I have never visited. But apparently it's getting a bit decrepit. So there's to be a new one. A new one has been designed, and we see a mock-up of it there, an artist's impression, as they usually say. And there's to be public subscription to pay for this. I think the costs estimated to be £300,000. It's to be a public subscription. So there's a link to that in the article. You can find it there, or I will make sure to put the link on the blog when this is uploaded. Now, moving on quickly. Oh, I did well there. I was hoping to do that the opening there in 10 minutes or less, and I've managed it in only 7. So that's great. That means that we can go across now to Stephen Duncan and what may be a confused corner. How are you this morning?
I'm very well, Peter. It's a beautiful blue day here, which is quite appropriate given it's the 30th of November.
The little bit that I can see out the window, I have sound deadening in front of the window because sound bounces off glass terribly. But the little bit of sky that I can see at the top is beautifully blue with some wispy white clouds. It is somewhat reminiscent of the saltire. Stretching there a wee bit. It's a beautiful day. It's a beautiful day. And what is it you're supposed to be talking about this morning?
Well, it's the presentation it's got the theme of to repurpose your ballot or not. That's the sort of heading to it. We're looking at recent election history in terms of voter participation, and considering what the opportunity is for anybody considering running a sort of campaign like that, and what its potential impact might be. This is all off the back of the recent Irish presidential election campaign. I think it was in October when there was a significant spoil your vote sort of campaign that was run.
All right. Just a wee bit of background on this. I somewhat mischievously, I have to admit, I said, I posited this, but I wasn't really, I wasn't launching such a campaign. I wasn't launching Spoil Your Vote campaign, although some people took it that way. I was only talking about a Spoil Your Vote campaign to highlight how pointless the election is. The 2026 election is, as far as Scotland's cause is concerned. There's no way to vote that actually aids Scotland's cause, that furthers it in any way. And I was highlighting this by saying you might as well spoil your ballot or repurpose your ballot. people have taken that too seriously and too literally. But some of the responses I've had suggest that there are some people who think it's actually a good idea, or it's something that should be taken seriously. So it's good that you're looking at it seriously today, or at least semi-seriously, because I suspect that you're just trying to stir the shit here, boy. That's what I think.
Not in my nature. Not in my nature. Okay, so this is the previous version of the presentation, but it's essentially the same. I had a few other little pictures on it there to sort of reference St Andrew's Day, but I can wait till next year. So let's take a look at voter participation in recent times. And what I've got here is 3 different charts, as you can see. The green one is represents the recent Irish presidential elections, and blue one is the Scottish general election from 2007, and or from across all the Scottish parliamentary elections that have been held since 1999, and the orange ones on the right are the Westminster elections in Scotland. And what we're looking at specifically on each of these charts is the percentage of invalid votes that were recorded in each of the elections, and also the turnout. The percentage of invalid votes are the bar charts, and the lines represent the turnouts at these elections. So we start with the left-hand chart to begin with, and just work our way through them each in turn. So you can see the big spike in the bar chart for the Irish presidential election in 2025 in terms of the invalid votes. 13%, just under, decided to spoil their vote with a specific message on their ballots. In fact, that 13% represents 14 times the average rate of the previous 4 elections in Ireland for the president. There was a specific online spoil your vote campaign. Peter, you got a question there on that?
Yeah, it's just I wanted to point out that the Irish Spoil Your Vote campaign, they didn't have a specified message, and this is one of the problems with it. I think everybody just wrote on their ballot what they thought. The people were writing different things on the ballot. So it didn't look like a coordinated campaign. But even at that 14 times the normal, you've got to take that seriously.
It didn't. Oh, okay. It didn't look like a coordinated campaign, but it actually was. And we'll see a bit later that there were some messages that were highlighted, were common amongst those marking their ballot papers. And also they had, it was organized in that they had, those people running the campaign had a formal launch for the campaign. They had designated campaign leaders, 8 of them, and they had their own website. And they had those people who were the campaign leaders and running the show were quite media savvy. They were, comprised of variously of podcasters, journalists, people who presented on television, and bloggers. And they had a targeted, audience. They knew who they were looking to sort of engage with, and that is primarily those that were disgruntled and disaffected and felt essentially that they were not represented by the 3 candidates that were standing in that election. So we look at looking at the Scottish situation. Again, you can see in 2007 there was a spike in invalid votes, but rather than a deliberate campaign, this came about sort of by accident. And whilst there was 10 times the average rate of the other 5 elections in 2007. That's an average between the constituency and regional ballots, by the way, that 3.5%. Generally, it's about 0.5, 0.6% of the vote that gets, that's the sort of incidence of spoiled ballots or invalid ballot papers. There was a sort of confusion on the ballot papers because for the first and only time there was 3, if you like, different elections taking place. Well, it was 2 elections, but there was 3 votes taking place. So the Scottish Parliament election was happening, and as usual, you had the 2 ballots, one for the constituency, one for the region, and the council elections were also taking place on the same day. So there was 3 different ballot papers of different colours. People were marking them in a sort of confused way, rather than putting an X on the balance sheet, they were putting 1, 2, and 3, etc. And that caused things to be, caused ballot papers to be invalidated.
I can't help, Stephen. I can't help but remind people that the man responsible for that election was none other than Dougie Alexander, and he was slated for the shambles of that election, and yet he still gets to hold high office in Scotland, courtesy of the British state. Yeah, a failure like that, a fiasco like that, should have ended his career. No, eventually it has won him awards. He's won prizes for it. It's politics as usual in the UK. Dougie Alexander. Yeah. Oh.
So yeah.
Sorry, Stephen. I keep clicking the wrong one there.
Yeah, so Douglas Alexander, the only person that ever, well, one of the only persons that ever fails upwards in the UK state. The other aspect of this was the new electronic counting system that was brought into place at the time. That was caused some of the problems that we're having. I'm not sure specifically what it was, but it's something to do with the fact that it was not only did you have 3 different elections, you had 3 different systems in place: first past the post, additional member system, and single transferable vote for the local authority elections. So that caused some issues as well. The one other observation on this chart is that you'll see from the turnout, that's been increasing significantly over the last couple of elections. In fact, it was over almost 64% for the turnout, which is really, it's the highest of the 6 elections we've had so far, and it's on an upward curve. So that seems to, certainly up to that point, imply sort of increased engagement in Scotland's registered voters turning out. At Westminster, for the elections held in Scotland, last year there was a slight uptick in the invalid vote rate over 1%. Generally, it's around about just under 0.7%, thereabouts. So a little bit of an uptick there may just be due to random variation. There certainly was no campaign run to cause that effect, or nothing like what happened in the 2007 Scottish election. But a big reduction in the turnout. So that was under 60%. And as you can see, going back to 2010, that hasn't happened. It's been, over 60% every time. In fact, in the tsunami election 2015, it was almost 72%, big involvement there. So there's seemingly a sizable amount of people who are fairly disillusioned and despondent and despairing in Scotland of the worthiness of voting in a British general election.
That last one. Sorry, I'm looking at these on a small monitor, Stephen. I'm looking at the charts. The uptick in invalid ballots. That was last year in the 2024 UK election. Yep. Well, it's not quite correct to say that there was no campaign, because there was my one-man campaign, End the Union campaign, and if there's no other conclusion, then I'm going to take credit for that. I'm going to take credit for that uptick and just claim them all as the result of my campaign. So we've slightly followed suit from the Irish there, and we've at least had a practice run at this spoil your vote sort of game, and we've had a small success with it. I think we can say that.
Okay, I wouldn't deny you that, Peter.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so the next slide looks at the opportunity that there may be there to run a successful spoil your vote or repurpose your ballot campaign. On the left-hand side, we're now looking at Westminster elections in Scotland, but specifically the votes for the SNP, the major party of independence, dwarfs all others. And again, going back to 2010, and you can see there's a sort of oscillating pattern there, an up and down pattern. In 2015, almost 1 million votes were gained by the SNP when they won all these seats, 56 seats out of 59. And then in 2017, well, took half the vote, 50% of the vote, just under, I think it was, vote share. That fell back in 2017, losing half of these votes that they gained. So almost 500,000 votes were lost in 2017. Vote share 37%. 2019, with Boris Johnson as Prime Minister and Brexit on the horizon, the SNP regained half of the votes that they'd lost, and all the 260,000 votes were put back on. Vote share went up to 45%. And then last year, again, as we know, a big reduction, 500,000 votes were lost and only 30% vote share. The next situation is between 2015 and 2024 is that almost 250,000 votes, or 50% of the volume of votes that were for the SNP in 2015 had been lost either to other parties or just didn't turn out to vote. So in terms of...
Sorry to interrupt again, Stephen. Now, that 2017 result, that is widely, if not generally, attributed to the SNP, Nicola Sturgeon's decision to declare that that election was not about independence. So the pro-independence vote, a big chunk of the pro-independence vote, didn't even bother to vote or put their votes elsewhere in protest or in despair that the Party of Independence was saying, this is not about independence. And I'm not sure about the other dips in the SNP vote, but I suspect that the same cause is there. It's every time, whenever people think that the SNP is failing Scotland's cause, not making progress, their vote drops away. When they manage to at least make it look as if they're fully committed to Scotland's cause, their vote goes up. I think that is a basic pattern underlying that. What do you think?
I think I do agree with you. I mean, the big reduction last year, but particularly because I think it was a reflection of the disappointment over the previous 5 years, where they had the big expectation at the end of 2019. Brexit was on the horizon. They were going to stop that happening. The big vote, a lot of people returned to them and voted for them. There was going to be a constitutional convention. Nicola Sturgeon called for it as First Minister at the end of January 2020. We know COVID happened and all the rest of it, but nothing happened at all on the independence front, and everything fell back with big disappointment, and people just didn't turn out to vote last year for the SNP and for anywhere else. The vote, as you saw, the turnout was down under 60% for the first time in 5 or 6 elections, British elections. So yes, I do think that is a is a sentiment of disappointment and despondency with people not turning out.
There's a point to be made here, maybe off a slight tangent, Stephen, but there's a point I'd like to get in with here, and that is that COVID is often cited by SNP apologists as the reason that there was no progress made during that period, the COVID period, which was basically 2020-21, there around about that. And they say, oh, COVID put a stop to everything. It wasn't COVID that put a stop to the independence campaign. It was Nicola Sturgeon. Nicola Sturgeon put a stop to it with her infamous cease and desist message, which was put out in the name of both the SNP and Yes Scotland and the Yes campaign, which by this time the SNP had hijacked, and they put that bastardized Yes logo out with the multicoloured thing. So in response to this COVID being used as an excuse for halting all campaigning, that was Nicola Sturgeon's order, her cease and desist message was halt all campaigning on the constitutional issue, because it couldn't do that during a pandemic. I went and checked. 2020, there were elections. There were, from memory, there were about 30 elections held in 2020 in about 20 to 24 different countries. I actually posted the list. The list can be found on Wikipedia. So there was a host of elections in all sorts of countries across the globe, on every continent except Antarctica, although there was a referendum and elections in the Falklands, which is just about as close to Antarctica as you can get. And I went and checked. There was referendums, maybe 7 or 8 referendums in half a dozen different countries. For some reason, Switzerland wasn't included on this, and I meant to check on that. But Switzerland's a bit of an exception because they're never done with referendums. So the point is, it was not a valid excuse for stopping the campaigning on the constitutional issue, and it's just another example of one of the just totally stupid things that Nicola Sturgeon did. It just politically, it's insane. Because we had an ideal, I'm talking too much about this. It was an ideal opportunity to build an online campaign, build on an online campaigning machinery. We had a captive audience. Everybody on lockdown, everybody in the house, everybody looking for something to do, something to watch. We had that captive audience. We could have created that machine. Why did Nicola Sturgeon call a halt to campaigning rather than help to make this happen, creating this online machine? Why did she put a halt to it? Because that online machine was going to be something that she and her party could not control. They would not be able to control it. And if as far as the SNP is concerned, if they can't control it, it has to be killed. And that's exactly what Nicola Sturgeon did. And that's one of the things that I will never forgive her for. Apologies, Stephen. That was off at a tangent, but whenever the subject of COVID comes up, I remember that email. From Nicola Sturgeon, and my blood begins to boil.
Okay, so I remember that too. It was May 2020, I think that came out. So
actually, sorry, I think it was March. But let's not get into that.
Okay. On the right-hand side, the second chart is looking at the voting intentions for Holyrood next year, the Holyrood Parliament, and these are the unknowns, percentage of unknowns split by constituency and region for three most recent surveys by these pollsters, Find Out Now, Survation, and YouGov. And you can just see quite quickly, whichever one you consider to be most accurate, there's a significant number of people either don't know, refuse to say how they're going to vote, or say that they're not going to vote at all. So either it's somewhere between a quarter and a third, perhaps, of voters currently don't know how they're going to vote. So there's a significant pool of people there that could be targeted for a repurpose your ballot campaign should one be organised and proceed along that basis. So moving on, but this slide now looks at the newsworthiness of spoil your vote or repurpose your ballot situations, if you like. Looking at the top sort of comments, first of all, relate to the Irish presidential election held a couple of months ago and the media coverage there. There's a comment there from the Simon Harris, who's the Irish Taoiseach, who's the deputy Taoiseach, if you like. It's worthwhile reading out what he had to say when he saw the proportion of invalid votes in that election. I'll just read it out. My sense from reading some of their comments was that they being those people that spoil their ballots, wanted to send a message to the political system, to political parties, that they didn't feel represented on the ballot. What I'm more interested in is the fact that people went to a lot of effort yesterday to go out and spoil their vote. People actually decided to get in their car, get on their bicycle, walk to their polling station. They didn't just sit at home. The people who spoiled their vote, we need to reflect on that too. So it's quite interesting when he's taking note of cognizance of the amount, number one, the amount of people who did make an effort to spoil a vote, and secondly, he's drawing a difference, demarking the difference between those people who voted, those people who made an effort to vote, to engage with the process, perhaps in an antipathetic way, and those who are apathetic, who sat on their couch and didn't bother going out to make their protest or vote in any fashion. So I think that's second part is as important as the volume of votes. He was recognizing that people were prepared to make the effort.
Yeah, I think that the underlying point there, I think, and it is worth stressing, is that spoiling your ballot, purposefully spoiling your ballot or repurposing your ballot, that is a form of activism. It is a form of activism, and that's the underlying point there. I think there's a lot of people dismiss it as opting out and of your vote and opting out of democracy. It's not. Not voting is opting out, but spoiling your ballot is a valid form of activism, political activism.
Absolutely. And then the other, just to finish off a bit on the Irish election, the other mainstream sort of press outlets like the Irish Times and the Irish Independent, they had plenty of articles on this issue, and RTE, the state broadcaster, even went as far as having a specific focus on those that organised the campaign. So it made a lot of, it was a big splash. So much so that it completely overshadowed the fact that the winner, Catherine Connolly, got a record number of first preference votes, just under 1,914,000, and the highest ever vote share in these elections, 63%. People don't remember that; they're now going to remember the volume of invalid votes that were recorded. Now, in the Scottish general election in 2007, looking at the media coverage there, now just remember this happened by accident, by mistake, as it were, due to the incompetence of various bodies, not least Dougie Alexander. There was a lot of coverage in the BBC, number of articles there. The normally sanguine and unflappable Brian Taylor, even he got his multicolored braces in a twist, saying that it was disgraceful and wasn't just shameful; it was utterly shameful, and it even made news in the Guardian because of the 140,000 votes between the two different ballots were spoiled, and the upshot of that was that this relegated the first SNP election win ever, so quite an historic event, and it relegated that to something of secondary importance. What the media homed in on was the scandal of the amount of votes that had been spoiled. Finally, on this slide, on the right-hand side there's a little table that shows you that invalid votes are recorded, how they are recorded and categorised in Scottish general elections. So there are sort of broad categories used, but so they don't record in any particular single message preponderance that might be written on the ballots by people repurposing the ballot papers, spoiling their votes. But in the Irish election, it was commented on that by journalists that things like "not my president, not my choice," that was noted and reported by the Irish journalists. So if there's sufficient volume of votes saying one thing, the media will pick up on that for no other reason, as the journalists like to be able to report a little novelty angle, something specific that's a bit different from the normal run-of-the-mill and perhaps even boring election campaigns. Just to bear that in mind. So the conclusion to repurpose your ballot or not. Well, not really sure. Maybe aye, maybe no. We know that Westminster turnouts are down, and there is some evidence of a slight increase in valid votes. But in Holyrood, the voting, the turnout at least, has been on an upward trajectory up to the last election, at least. On Westminster voting, we see that SNP has a sort of cyclical behaviour. It's going ups and downs in the voting pattern there, and then they have a net loss of just under 750,000 since the tsunami election in 2015. What that will mean for Holyrood 2026, who knows? We'll find out next year. The polling data does show a large volume of don't knows and generally undecided members of the electorate. I would say that whilst at this time, looking at the polls 6 months out from the last Holyrood election, there was round about I don't know, a fifth of voters were reporting as being undecided on that. So there's always a substantial amount of people who don't know how they're going to vote or if they're going to vote. Just bear that in mind as well. But the rate of invalid votes, can definitely be the story. We've seen that on 2 or 3 occasions, particularly obviously the Irish election, big splash there, and in 2007 in Scotland. And finally, just one last observation, one last point, just what you were saying a few minutes ago, Peter. Repurposed ballots are not wasted votes. You are engaging. If people do go out and vote and mark their ballot paper in some fashion, they are engaging with the process. They're not excluding them. There's no self-exclusion as there would be with just not turning out to vote. And if you don't turn out to vote, that will be dismissed as apathy by the political parties. You can use your vote to, send a message or instruction to the political parties if you don't think that any of the candidates on these ballot represent what you want, your desires and aspirations. So that's really it from me, Peter. I don't know if you get any further comments or questions on that.
It's all very interesting. I've taken quite an interest, as you know, in this whole business of not voting, and it's especially important to realise that spoiling your ballot, purposefully invalidating your ballot, is a political act. It is activism. Abstaining, just not going into the polling station, just not voting, is also a political action, but it is a null action because it sends no message. It doesn't say anything. If it signals anything at all, it's indifference. It just says like, "Oh, make of this what you will. I'm no bothered." That's all it says. But it is a political act. And if you're going to make a political act, then you might as well make it something that is valid, not something that's null, but something which actually contains and conveys a message. So
I think.
Sorry.
I think abstaining if you abstain, it might be a political act, and I agree with you, but it allows the politicians to make their own interpretation of that, and they can spin it any which way they want, and they have access to the media. You and me don't. So I think that's the point. If you write something on a ballot paper that says, "I want you to do this," then you're recording what your message is, and you're making it clear. It's a positive engagement rather than just a sort of passive abstaining.
Yeah, I think we should make it clear at this moment that we are not talking here about an actual campaign to spoil your ballot in 2026. I'm not sure if that is a good way to go. There's certainly some form of political action is required, and voting for any of the nominally pro-independence parties is almost as much a null political act as not voting at all, because they really don't stand for anything that's significant to Scotland's cause, that's relevant. It has no effect on Scotland's cause. There's no vote for any of the nominally pro-independence parties actually aids Scotland's cause. So if you want to perform a political action that actually aids Scotland's cause, you're going to have to look elsewhere. And the only elsewhere there is, in the absence of another party, little hint of what's coming up, the only elsewhere that there is repurposing your ballot, spoiling your ballot. That's the none of the above option. That's all you have. So I'll thank you for that, Stephen, and lots of food for thought there. I dare say we'll get quite a few comments on that, which reminds me we've had a few comments already, and so I'll just leave you just now, and we'll go over and take a look at these comments before I go on to the final part of the show. Thank you, Stephen, and I'll speak to you later. Okay, pal?
Okay.
Right. Yeah, there were quite a few comments came in the first part of the show. Gordon Henderson, succinct as ever. Gordon, how you doing, pal? Make Pickland great again. He's a great one for the slogans. You need a slogan. You go to Gordon Henderson. He's your man. He'll bring it up. Freedom Tracy. Hi, Tracy. She says that she used to live in Athelstan Ford. I suspect then, Tracy, that it may have been something in the water that made you the person you are. Well, I don't know about that. Good morning, anyway, Tracy. And Tommy, Tommy, I think this is. We're trying to reason with a criminally corrupt entity in Westminster, and that doesn't deserve the respect of any respect from the sovereign people of Scotland. The entire voting system is corrupt and legally would be banned from any and every other country in the entire world. We are legitimizing Westminster's right to dictate to Scotland about anything. Tommy's here talking about the Section 30 process, going in the Section 30 route, I think. I'm not sure what that ship has sailed. I'm not sure what that comment is about. Tommy's very active here. Waiting another year to partake of another totally rigged voting system is madness. I'm not sure about that either. Getting bogged down in the pedantic stats of a corrupt is obviously. Tommy's not enamoured of the voting system. I presume he's talking about the voting system in Scotland. And I have to say, there is nothing wrong with the voting system. The voting system does what it's designed to do. It gives us a proportional parliament. It is not corrupt. It is not illegal. The problem that we have is not the voting system, but the fact that there are British parties allowed to squat in our parliament. That's a problem that we can solve with restoring Scotland's independence. Thomas Potter, where's my comments went? I have no idea, Tommy. Thomas, I have no idea where your comments have gone. I'm not sure where you are with these. Oh, this is on Facebook. Yeah, that's Facebook for you, Thomas. I'm sorry. And I know, Thomas, I would have loved to have seen your comments. It's just a shame that Facebook appears to have lost them. Right, moving on. What's another big thing that's been in the news today and pretty much all week is the launch or the launch-like thing of your party, or whatever it is going to be called, because we don't know that yet. And it was a shambles. Don't think there's anything more that can be said about it. It was a complete shambles. It continues to be. There's a real mess there. 1 year ago today, on St Andrew's Day, 2024, I launched New Scotland Party at an event in the Salutation Hotel here in Perth. And this is what I had to say about it at the time. New Scotland Party was born out of the disappointment, frustration and anger which has arisen across the independence movement in the 10 years since the 2014 referendum. Feelings engendered by the Scottish Government's failure to progress Scotland's cause. But it is no knee-jerk reaction. It is, rather, the product of a growing realisation that Scotland's political elite has been captured by the British political system. Our most senior and prominent politicians are immersed in and suffused with the British way of doing politics. I lately concluded that they are beyond redemption. That was a year ago, and I think the point has been proved on that. Our political elite have failed and continue to fail Scotland's cause. There's no disputing that, unless you're some party loyalist for whatever party, but for whatever party, and then you'll claim that our party's different. The thing is, none of them are different. New Scotland Party was intended to be different. As you'll probably be aware, New Scotland Party was put on hiatus because it quickly became clear that we couldn't organise and develop New Scotland Party and run the Manifesto for Independence campaign, the Scottish UDI strategy. We could not do both. And we decided that I say we because I had a team working with me. I still have a team. I don't work well with teams, as they've discovered, but there is still a team working on this. And we had to focus on the Manifesto for Independence campaign because it was the most important thing. Is vital, in fact. It had always been my intention to make an announcement today about New Scotland Party and what was going to happen, because I figured that by this time, St Andrew's Day a year on, we would know better where we stood going into the 2026 Scottish general election. And we do, and where we stand is not in a good place. We are very definitely not in a good place. From the perspective of Scotland's cause, we are in a very bad place. What I had hoped to be announcing was that the Manifesto for Independence campaign, the petition, had been a great success. This is what I hoped I was going to be announcing. That it had been such a success that, let's say, it got 30,000 votes by sometime September this year. There were 30,000 people supporting the Manifesto for Independence petition, which demands that it is a commitment to the Scottish UDI strategy for restoring independence, the only defined strategy that there is. None of the political parties have a defined strategy. They don't. They claim that they do. They don't. They lie to you. So the hope was that I'd be announcing today that 30,000 votes, 30,000 supporters of the Manifesto petition by September, enough for the Alapa leadership to have a change of heart and to rethink things, and also for the Alapa membership to be emboldened, so that, long story short, I hope to be saying that Alapa had adopted the Manifesto for Independence. And having adopted the Manifesto for Independence, their vote rocketed. They mostly taking votes from Reform UK, but also taking a sizable nibble out of the SNP vote. But the Alapa vote, the Alapa polling had massively increased on the back of adopting the Manifesto for Independence and being seen to have an actual strategy. This is what I hope to be announcing. I further hope to be announcing that with that boost, with Alapa getting an increase in vote and making the Manifesto for Independence, bringing it more into the public arena, that the number of signatories went up to 60,000. And with 60,000 people having signed the Manifesto for Independence petition, come the SNP conference, the membership were emboldened, and perhaps more to the point, the leadership had been given such a fright by Alapa's rise that moves were made, and you know these moves were actually made, but moves were made to have the SNP also adopt the Manifesto for Independence. The Newington Resolution, the one that was buried, Mike Wallace's resolution, or the one that's most associated with Mike Wallace. This is what I'd hoped to be announcing. So that I'd hoped to be announcing today that New Scotland Party was being wound up because it is now redundant. We didn't need a party representing an actual strategy for restoring independence, because the previously nominally pro-independence parties had now all become genuine independence parties because they'd all adopted the Manifesto for Independence, and that made that made the 2026 election a decisive moment in the restoration of Scotland's independence. It had become the decisive moment. It had become the trigger for a process that would actually lead to independence, and that therefore we were looking for a very high turnout, because there was actually something going to happen because of this. Very high turnout, and a massive vote giving a mandate for the Manifesto for Independence. Then the Scottish Parliament asserting competence, legislative competence over the Constitution, and then on to a confirmatory referendum on a proposal to dissolve the Union. Dissolution of the Union Bill become a dissolution of the Union Act, subject to a confirmatory vote in a referendum, a proper constitutional referendum. That is what I'd been hoping for. In actual fact, what we've got is pretty much the opposite of that. The nominally pro-independence parties, particularly the SNP and ALPA, continue to fail Scotland's cause. They offer nothing. They are offering nothing for Scotland's cause. And the SNP is even worse. The SNP, what John Swinney's proposals are going to do, if he gets away with it, is they're going to do serious damage to Scotland's cause, to the cause of restoring independence. If John Swinney does what he's intending to do, what he's stated that he's going to do, it will set Scotland's cause back possibly by decades. We all have a hard fight to get back even to where we are now, which isn't a particularly good place. And the 26th election is looking like being a bit of a washout. John Swinney's hoping for a massive surge in the SNP vote. That's not going to happen, because he's not offering anything. Other parties are hoping for a massive surge in their vote. It's not going to happen because they're not offering anything either. All they have to say is, oh, we're not the SNP. The SNP is terrible, and we're not the SNP, therefore vote for us. Hang on a minute, that's not a good enough reason. No, we've got what we've got is the opposite of what I'd hoped for. So, in fact, where I'd hoped to be declaring that New Scotland Party is redundant, what I now find is that there is a greater need for New Scotland Party than ever, and that rather than being wound up, it should be relaunched. The problem is, I'm worn out, and I just don't really feel that I'm the person for the job. Not anymore. I might feel differently later on, but for the moment, I didn't know what I was actually going to announce today when I started this. But I've got to this point, and I don't want to do it. I just don't want to do it. But somebody has to. There has to be something on offer for Scotland's cause in 2026, or it will be another missed opportunity. It's just not going to be me. I'm not that. Sorry. Moving on. Other announcements. I've got two things that I want to say. One is if you're not following my blog on Substack, just search Peter A. Bell on Substack. If you're not following it, I urge you to do so, and not so much because of what I have to say, although hopefully I have some interesting things to say. I do take a rather distinctive, if not idiosyncratic, perspective on Scotland's politics. But you should go and look at it for the comments section. The comments section is superb, and that has little or nothing to do with me. I'm just the trigger. The comments section is great. Great discussion goes on there. A lot of disagreement, but a lot of good ideas and good analysis coming out, because the contributors to the comment section are superb. And I was going to name a couple of names, but I've decided not to, because that would be invidious, I think is the word. But it's pretty good, honestly. It's much better than the below the line comments in the National. Well, that wouldn't take much, especially now that the National's introduced that daft character limit that doesn't allow you to make a proper statement in many instances. So please follow the blog, and that's how we'll keep in touch, because we've decided, Stephen and I, we've decided that we will put the a Proud Malcontent show on hiatus for the month of December, when mostly there's not really all that much happens in the month of December. And it'll give us a chance to revamp the show, smooth out at least some of the rough edges, make it a bit smoother, a bit slicker, a bit better generally. And we will be back in the new year. I think it's the 4th of January that we're coming back. But we'll be on hiatus for then. For the moment, all that leaves for me to do is to wish you a happy Christmas and a happy New Year, and to say goodbye.